Hello folks, this is Pierre-André Mathieu, and I'm here today to show you on how to, how I use a blueprint interface to create highly modular and reusable character system in Unreal Engine. I'm going to talk about the role of blueprint interfaces, the specific logic of how I set my character function, and how I leverage the animation notifies to trigger a lot of gameplay events throughout my animations. So starting off, I have character blueprint interface. What it does is it likely defines every common actions or queries shared by all characters within the game, albeit getting health, taking damage, setting movement state, you name it. Now the reason why I'm using this interface is because I'm using it for decoupling and reusability, as it allows any two blueprints, like say a projectile and an enemy, or a player and a special floor, to communicate without needing to know the exact class of the other. Now let's double click, and what I did here is I add a new function. Then I rename this function set character. Now when I double click, what I have is basically the same as what I would do in creating a function within a character blueprint or an actor blueprint. So all I have to do is add a new variable and search for the variable called character blueprint. And once I've done that, I click it and rename it to return value. The character blueprint is essentially the one I'm using as a stand-in for both player and enemies alike. So if I go to class settings, I can go to interfaces and implemented interfaces and add a blueprint interface, which is the character blueprint interface. This one right here. And once I add that, I'll go to interfaces right here on the blueprint tab and click it, then double click the function I use within the character blueprint interface. As you can see here, I'm using the reference to the character blueprint itself, and then I extract it and type in does object implement interface. So it checks if the blueprint interface implements a specific interface which operates well for both native and blueprint interfaces. And after that, I extract the node from the return value boolean and click branch, which is the one I have here. What I'm doing here is basically determining whether this is true or not. If this is true, then and only then will I be able to return the node using the return value of the character blueprint itself. If it's false, then it does nothing. Period. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the player character blueprint interface. All it does is defines actions specific to the player, albeit check inventory, open menu, set camera, look sensitivity, and so on. Why I'm using that interface? Well, it's obviously for specialization in terms of player character. So when I open it, the set player character is pretty much the same thing as I do with the set character, as all I needed to do is go to player character, click class settings, and add in implemented interface, which is the player character itself right here. And as for the other functions, I will explain them to you in good time, but right now I'm just explaining how I use this function to have it cooperate with the character blueprints, such as the player characters and the enemy characters, without having to cast, because casting is expensive and it takes up a lot of data and space. And lastly, I'll explain to you what enemy blueprint is. It defines actions specific to enemy type, albeit melee enemy, projectile enemy, flying enemy, and mini boss type enemy. Or it could be set target, patrol route, or alert level. And the reason why I'm using this is, like the player character blueprint, I'm using it for specialization, but only for enemies. What it does is it enables other blueprints like AI controllers to interact only with specific enemy features without having to use the casting. Now I'm going to double click here. Okay. What I do is I click the plus button to create a new function, then rename it to set enemy. It's pretty much the same as I did with both the player controller blueprint and character. I'm sorry, I meant to say player character blueprint and character blueprint, but instead of those I used enemy AI blueprint instead. I just simply need to create an output, then search for enemy blueprint and click it, then rename it to return value or return node. Whatever you want to call it. Now, if I click here, I'm going to go to class settings, and within interfaces, I have to add a blueprint interfaces on implemented interfaces. Then I'll add, click this, and then add enemy blueprint interface, which is the one I have here. Let me double click this, and after I added the enemy blueprint interfaces, I'm going to show you as to how I set up the following. I'm getting reference to the enemy character itself, and when I do, I have to make sure if that object does implement the interface, such as the enemy blueprint interface right here. Yeah, that's the one. And not only that, from here I have to extract the blueprint from here in order to ensure that whether or not it's valid to use reference based on the enemy blueprint itself. Then there's the equal. If the object implemented by the enemy blueprint interface is equal to the validated self-reference, which is the enemy blueprint, then and only then we return a node from the branch that carries these two. If it's false, then it does nothing. The next thing I'm going to talk about are the animation notifies and gameplay control. What I'm about to show you are various functions being executed immediately after receiving an animation notify. To put it simply, an anim notify is a marker in which I place on an animation timeline, like punch, jump, dodge, kick, or slash, that triggers a specific event in my blueprint logic at an exact frame. So let's start off with clear hit characters. Clear hit characters' purpose is combat initialization and reset. It's placed early in an attack animation or at the end of a combat sequence. It calls upon clear hit character functions on the target, likely the character itself through get owner and set characters call to reset the list of enemies already hit by the current attack. It prevents one swing from hitting the same enemy twice. Now I'm gonna double click here and show you what clear hit characters actually is. It's like this, but I'll get to fixing it later. Well, actually, what I meant to say was I'll get to refining the clear hit characters when I show you a tutorial as to how to refine that specific function. But for now, I'm focusing on talking about how I'm using blueprint interfaces to efficiently have the animation notify use that specific blueprint interface to interact with the character blueprint without having to cast. Now, let's move on to combat animation. Combat animation is designed to be an animation state flag placed at the start or throughout an attack animation. It first calls upon set combat animation, the function on the target. It sets the Boolean combat animation to true. This is often used in the This is often used in the animation blueprint to lock the character into the current attack animation, preventing movement inputs or state changes until the animation is complete. So what I have here is get owner. Then as I extract from here, I need to make sure that character blueprint interface does contain the implement interfaces. And from here, I extract a node from here and type in branch to ensure whether this is true or false. If it's true, then I'll use the set character blueprint interface to extract the node from the return value and use combat animation. And once I have that, all I need to do is promote this to a variable. And as you can see here, after I promote to a variable, it's already named, so I didn't need to rename it. For the default value, I'll put it to true. Actually, to be more precise, I set the checkbox to true because it's exactly what I need when applying this to, say, a melee weapon like a katana or a great sword. But I'm not going to get into that just yet. Next, I have Invincibility frame. The Invincibility frame animation notify serves as a defensive state control. It's placed at the beginning of a dodge or quick step animation, and it calls upon set invincibility frame with a specific is invincible state. If this notify is on, it enables invincibility frames, making the character immune to damage for the duration of the animation sequence. I'm sorry, not sequence, animation section. As I did before on combat animation, all I needed is get owner, then make sure the character blueprint interface implements this. Then I'll use branch to determine whether or not this is true. If true, then I'm using set character to extract set invincibility frame, and from here I extract a node from here and promote it to a variable, then set it to true afterwards. There I have ability. This animation notify is meant for movement reenabling. It's placed at the end of an action like a hit stun, dodge, or long attack. It sets off move and jump back to their desired state, likely true, although they are shown unchecked, false in the image, which I'm sorry. I'm not gonna get to that. If it's used to re-enable, it allows the player to move, jump, attack, or block or dodge again after the restricted action finishes. So obviously I have these, and from there I extract move, jump, attack, block, dodge, burst, and enemy step. Then I extract each and every one of those booleans and make them true. From here, I extract a node and type in a branch, then break it here, like so. And when the branch is brought up, it's going to automatically show a check mark on a condition, which is good because I can use this advantage to promote to a variable, then rename this variable to release buffer and leave it true at that. And there's the release buffer, which is extracted from the character blueprint with the use of set character. So if I double click, it's going to have a buttload of inputs that I use. So yeah. Okay. Moving on to air puff. This anim notify is meant for gravity movement modification, and it's likely placed during a jump or special aerial technique. It retrieves character movement component from the character blueprint itself and sets the gravity scale based on the gravity scale variable. It's often used to reduce the gravitation momentarily during a jump apex, for instance, to create a floating effect, enhancing the jump's feel. The buffer start is pretty obvious. The anim notify is meant for input buffering, placed during an attack animation. It sets an input buffer integer to 0 or another value. It likely holds the identification of the next button press, for example, 1 for attack and 2 for jump. Actually, 1 for jump and 2 for attack. In setting this up, I can tell the game to start listening for the next input, allowing the player to queue up the next action before the current animation fully finishes, enabling smoother combat combos. The last one I'm going to talk about is end animation. It's designed for state transition and reset, placed at the very end of any state changing animation like an attack, stun, or block. It sets state integer and substate integer back to 0 or a designated idle value. Those integers right here, as you can see from me highlighting those, are likely used in animation blueprint state machine to transition the character back to a neutral idle state. Okay, just to give you a quick demonstration, I have a player character, the ninja, who can dash. So the anim notifies that I'm going to focus testing on are buffer start and end animation. When the animation starts, the character on the 5th frame is actually the 6th frame is using the buffer start. When he goes to the end, where he stops dashing, the end animation on the 69th frame plays right here. Those are the two animations that I'm going to be giving a test run to ensure that the blueprint interface is working properly. So I'm going to add a breakpoint onto buffer start and end animation, in which I already did here. So I think this is a good opportunity for a test run. As I press the dash button, it initiates the buffer start. When the character ends the dash right then and there, it initiates the end animation. And the reason why this is possible is because I'm using the blueprint interface to extract the input buffer at the start of buffer start from the character blueprint, and then when I stop dashing, I'm using the other two, state integer and substate integer, in which I extract from the character blueprint right here. And needless to say, it's highly effective than casting, and for good reason too. Let's do it again. Now it works. And that'll do for my tutorial on how to use Blueprint interface to extract the nodes from any blueprint without casting. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for future tutorials such as this, and always keep in mind that what you take and learn from me is yours to do with as you see fit. Peace out, and I will see you on the next video.